Norman, Oklahoma is the third largest city in Oklahoma, and it's been my home since 2007. Norman is famous for being home of the University of Oklahoma. So in the past, I've made some different videos about the pros and cons of living in Norman, what I hate about living here, neighborhood videos, etc. This video, though, is meant to give you an overview of our amazing town. So here come the facts. Norman is a small city located about 15 miles south of Oklahoma City. But honestly, Norman's really big. It's about 189 square miles. That's especially big when you compare it to something like Washington, D.C., where their landmass is around 68 square miles. Norman was founded in 1889 and became a town. It was incorporated in 1891. Interstate 35 goes right through Norman, and that means it's really easy to get to Oklahoma City, Kansas, or Texas. Norman has one regional airport. It's called Mex Westheimer, and it used to be a naval flight center in World War II. So I mentioned earlier that Norman is famous for being the home of the University of Oklahoma. OU was founded in 1890, and Norman hasn't ever existed without the University of Oklahoma. OU is also the largest employer in Norman. While it's difficult to separate the University of Oklahoma from Norman, it's so big for Oklahoma that for people that aren't living close to OU or aren't going to school there, it's like things like that, you don't really notice an impact of the university on your normal everyday life. At the time of filming, Norman is home to 128,000 full-time residents, and the student count at OU is under 30,000. So that's not included in the 128,000. When I personally moved to Norman in 2007, Norman was pretty overwhelming for me because I came from a small town of around 15,000 people in Oklahoma, which in reality isn't that small of a town, but it was a big jump in size and population for me. For a lot of my undergraduate life at OU, I didn't really know how big Norman was, and I didn't venture out into different parts of Norman. Often part of the draw for living in Norman is, of course, its size, but also the activities and environment that come with that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that right after I talk about the housing options in Norman. If you haven't seen my channel before, I'm Marcie Billen. I'm a real estate agent here, and I live in Norman, Oklahoma, which I've already said like 5 times. I work with my husband, Handsome Wong, and he's lived here since the early 2000s. It would be really tough for us to live anywhere else in Oklahoma because we really, really like it here. Each week, I release free content all about living in Oklahoma just for you so that you might understand what it could be like to live here. So if you do need help buying a house, selling a house, or maybe buying an investment property here in Norman, please give me a call. You can send me a text or inquire on my website, which I'll link below for you. So over the years, I've made quite a few videos about living in Norman, and I've also made quite a few videos about different neighborhoods in Norman. So I'm going to link that playlist for you at the end of this video. It's not every neighborhood in Norman, that would be crazy, but there are a lot of neighborhoods that I've filmed for you. So at the time of filming, the average home price, or median, I use median. The median home price in Norman stays under $300,000, well under $300,000. So I would section Norman into 5 distinct areas, and that's going to include West Norman, East Norman, Central Norman campus, and South Norman. So yes, I have mentioned before that Norman is huge, and maybe that's not how other people would distinguish different areas of our city. This is just what I think. West Norman is going to be the area west of I-35, and that's a pretty common thing to say, like, oh, I live in West Norman, and everyone knows what that means. East Norman is anything east of the University of Oklahoma. Central Norman is going to be classified as anything between I-35 and OU. And then South Norman is the area south of Highway 9 or close to it. So the median house price in Norman is $268,000 right now. Usually housing in Norman consists of a lot of single family housing. There are some condos, there are apartments to rent, of course, there are some townhouses, not many, and there are some multifamily properties. 1-story homes are incredibly common in Norman. You can find a 2-story home. 1-story homes are what people typically have. The campus area of Norman is going to carry a much higher price point than other parts of Norman. And also these campus homes are going to be older than homes in other parts of Norman. Another question I commonly get is about storm shelters. So Not every home has a storm shelter. This is just not something that is important to a lot of Oklahomans. So to install a storm shelter right now, the prices are ranging between $3,000 and all the way up to $10,000. It depends on what kind you want. There are options, of course, to rent in Norman, including single family homes, apartments, condos, townhouses, multifamilies. So if you're not ready to buy a house yet, or you just want to rent, which is totally fine, then you can absolutely find something to rent. Education. There are 17 public elementary schools in Norman, Oklahoma. All of them but one are named after former US presidents. The 4 middle schools in Norman are named after famous American writers, and there are 2 high schools in Norman, both of which are 6A, so they're quite large. That's going to be Norman North and Norman High. Okay, I got to read my list on this one. So private schools in Norman include Community Christian School, All Saints Catholic School, Victory Family School, and those are all parochial schools, which means they're religious schools. In terms of secular schools, there is one with those all have high schools. So there's another secular school in Norman that does have a high school, and that's going to be Terra Verde. To my knowledge, OU does have programs that include high school students, although I don't know what all of that entails. I also know that a lot of students opt to go to like community college after high school or perhaps during, and we don't have any community colleges here in Norman, but we have one in South Oklahoma City called OCCC or Oklahoma City Community College, and one in Midwest City called Rose State College. Norman Public Schools also operates an aviation academy, which is pretty new for Norman, and they are taking applications right now. So as far as OU, I did attend OU. I graduated in 2011 with a degree in international studies, and I also studied French and Arabic. Languages do have a pretty strong presence at OU. The most popular majors or things to study at OU include business or anything business related. It does have a very big business college, and then engineering, and also communications or journalism. OU also includes a meteorology school, which I know is really popular because I had a lot of friends that were studying that in college. And we do have a National Weather Service campus at OU. Other opportunities for education, including like student education and adult education, include More Norman Technology Center, and there are a couple of campuses. Norman has 64 community parks, 5 recreation centers, a golf course, a tennis center, 4 different disc golf courses, a swim complex with water slides, a wading pool, over 30 tennis courts and pickleball courts, and 3 different special event centers. My personal favorite park in Norman is going to be Sutton Wilderness Trail Park. I go there almost every day to walk the trails because it's wooded. It's one of the only wooded trails in Norman. Norman is also home to a brand new senior wellness center, and that's been amazingly popular. It's a very beautiful site, and I encourage you to visit if you're interested. Sports. Okay, so everyone talks to me about football game day in Norman. And yes, the traffic sucks. I made an entire video about this. I'll link it here for you. But the thing is, it's 7 games. And yes, the SEC is coming to Norman, and maybe by the time you watch this, it's already here, and I'll make an entirely new video about all the crazy traffic. But listen, guys, it's 7 weekends. It does bring a lot of money into our town, and it's something that we have to put up with and that contributes to our economy. And also, most people here really like football. I am not one of those people, but I can sit at home and read on that day. That's not a problem for me. But it's not a religion per se in Norman, but it's a very exciting day or days or really the whole season. Everyone is pumped about OU football. So yes, the Sooners have so many loyal fans, but also high school sports are pretty popular here in Norman. Lots of people go to Norman North and Norman High games. We're a sports town. Norman is actually home to several museums as well, including Sam Noble Natural History Museum, Fred Jones Jr., which is my personal favorite. That's the art museum, and it's free. There's a National Weather Museum here in Norman, and there are several other smaller ones that are visited quite frequently. Food might be one of the biggest complaints for me and my husband here in Norman. Sometimes it feels like there are too many chains. But we do have some really good restaurants. The Hal Smith restaurant group has a lot of different options here in Norman, including Charleston's, Red Rock, The Ranch, and there are some other smaller ones as well. Oh, and Neighborhood Jam, that's one of the breakfast spots. Other favorite local restaurants are going to be La Baguette, Scratch Kitchen and Cocktails, and my personal all-time favorite in Norman, Juan del Fuego. So if you didn't know, Norman is actually known as a city of festivals. We have quite a few festivals that go on throughout the year, and these take a lot of effort to put on, and they are very large festivals. One of which is Norman Music Festival. It's amazing. It's fun. There's stuff during the day as well as at night because I don't know about you, but my bedtime is really early. The Medieval Fair, which is in April, the first weekend in April, is always a fun time. Norman Jazz Festival is another big festival here in Norman, and that's Jazz in June. There's also a Chocolate Festival, and there's probably a couple of others that I'm missing and can't think of right now. And then there's also Second Friday Art Walk, which happens every second Friday of the month in downtown Norman. So often when I'm helping people move into Norman or some of the surrounding towns around Norman, they're asking me about different groups they can be involved in. So I know for a fact that the Kiwanis group is very large here in Norman, also Rotary Club and Norman Newcomers. And then there are lots of opportunities to volunteer if you'd like. I'm personally involved in Big Brother Big Sister here in Norman. That's where I spend the majority of the time that I'm volunteering. And then there's also other things like United Way, Transition House, and Bridges of Norman. So the 5 largest employers here in Norman are going to be the University of Oklahoma, Johnson Controls, which is sometimes listed as York, which used to be the name of it, the Chickasaw Nation. You're also going to have Norman Regional Health System. And then of course, the city of Norman is one of the biggest employers here in Norman. So that's one of the coolest things about our city. To me, we are a suburb. Like lots of people are going to drive to Oklahoma City each day to go to work, which is great. But there are a lot of options here in the city itself. So in my mind, this kind of separates Norman from the rest of the Oklahoma City suburbs to me, that we have our own thriving economy. And of course, we are the largest of all of the suburbs in Oklahoma City. Now, I must say that you have to have a car in Norman. We do have public transportation, but I would only rely on it if you're very close to the University of Oklahoma, because that's where it's most consistent. And then of course we have I-35, which, as you know, is the easiest and fastest way to get to Oklahoma City. And then we also have Highway 9, which kind of splits Norman on the south side. It is really important that you have a car here. I have so many other videos about Norman, and I do hope that you go and watch them. Thanks so much for joining me here today, and I will talk with you soon.